Is it possible to get enough protein on a vegan diet?
It's funny because every restaurant I've ever worked at, there's so much emphasis on this word, and it's always referring to body parts of animals. Hello, where do you think these animals got their protein? They're plant eaters. Pigs and cows and chickens and turkeys, they eat plants. All protein does come from plants. When people are concerned about this, which I've never been, nobody has protein deficiency in this country. It's like non-existent. I haven't eaten an animal in over 27 years and I've never had to worry about it. I don't go out of my way to eat anything in particular to make sure. I just eat a good variety of food. The 5 strongest land animals on the planet, we've got elephants, giraffes, hippos, rhinos, and gorillas, and they eat plants.
Welcome to Plant the Change. I'm Michelle Fosnot, founder of Solid Rock, Florida, Solid Rock Community School, and Sanctuary at Solid Rock. We're a forward-thinking, eco-advanced nonprofit specializing in K-12 education. Hello and welcome to Plant the Change. Today we have a super special guest and friend, Shannon Blair. Her life work is dedicated to raising awareness and providing education on animal rescue, veganism, and plant-based living. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start by you telling your journey to being vegan.
It started back in 1996. Well, really before that. My mom always taught me to be really empathetic and compassionate and kind, and I was a huge animal lover. I grew up in upstate New York, and we would go to the county fairs, and I'd spend many hours with the goats and the pigs and the cows, having no idea what was going to happen to them after the fair was over. But I loved animals so much, and back in 1996, I had an older cousin who was away at college in Connecticut, and she came home for Thanksgiving, and everybody was talking about how Zoe was a crazy vegan now. And I didn't really know what that meant. I knew that a vegan didn't eat certain things, but past that, I didn't really understand it. But when she arrived for Thanksgiving, she dared me not to eat any meat for the day. So I was 9 and competitive, and I took the dare, and we had a great Thanksgiving. During our traditional meal, the only thing that I didn't eat was the poor dead turkey. And then my family's Italian, so we always have a second holiday meal that's a big Italian spread, and I would have missed out on the meatballs, but way back then my grandma actually made vegan meatballs using gimme lean ground beef style, and we were really lucky. In our part of New York, we actually had a health food store in front of our main Galleria mall, so she was able to get that, and she did everything the same except didn't use Parmesan and used an egg replacer. And so for our Italian meal, I even had the meatballs. It was delicious. And then that night, Zoe brought me in Grandma's living room, and she put a VHS tape into the VCR that she had brought home from college. And I saw what happened to the animals that I loved so much. And that was that. I never ate another animal again. But then I went on for another almost 2 decades, thinking I was really doing great for the animals and speaking for them every day, but missing a huge part. And it was back in 2018 that I actually found out what was happening to animals in the dairy industry and then the egg industry. And since then, I found out that I really never stopped learning, because there are so many horrific things happening to animals at the hands of our species all over. But someone at work actually told me that I was supporting some really horrible things by being vegetarian for the animals, and called me a hypocrite. And what she said bothered me so much that I went home and looked into it, and I found out that she was absolutely right. As you know, I could go on about it a lot more because I talk a lot. But
so when your family member came for Thanksgiving, she was vegan, but after that, you really didn't become vegan, you became vegetarian.
Yeah.
So you were a vegetarian for decades, it sounds
19
like.
years.
Yeah, and then became vegan.
Right. She was calling herself a vegan, but I would say that she never really fully understood it either. It didn't last, but at least it lasted long enough to tell me the information that I initially needed to hear to make the first steps. But yeah, unfortunately, I had no idea anything about the dairy and egg industries. I figured cows just eat grass and make milk, and
So did I.
chickens just lay eggs, and why let them go to waste was kind of my mentality. I thought vegans were out of their minds, to be honest. I used to try to get people to become vegetarian by telling them how crazy I knew the vegans were, but that I made so much sense. But then I found out a lot more.
So here's a question I know you get all the time, and it's almost like you can start laughing now because you've heard it so much, but is it possible to get enough protein on a vegan diet?
Yeah, that is a funny one.
Because protein has become a food group in today's world.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny because every restaurant I've ever worked at, there is so much emphasis on this word, and it's always referring to body parts of animals. And it's like, hello, where do you think these animals got their protein? They're plant eaters. Like, basically all the animals we eat, unless we feed them something and they unknowingly eat, another animal, pigs and cows and chickens and turkeys, they eat plants. And so all protein does come from plants. You'll see me do this because I don't like these words. And it's just like, watermelon has protein, like everything has protein. So when people are concerned about this, which I've never been, nobody has protein deficiency in this country unless they're literally starving or being starved by someone intentionally, which is really horrible, but it's like non-existent. So it's not really something to worry about. But if people are concerned, they can do a simple Google search. And if they want to make it really simple, they can just switch it right over to images, and they'll get so many charts they won't even know what to do with them about all the different plants and how much protein they contain. But I haven't eaten an animal in over 27 years, and I've never had to worry about it. I don't go out of my way to eat anything in particular to make sure. I just eat a good variety of food. I do love tofu, which is high in protein. Soy is great. I do love beans, so nobody really has to worry about this. It's funny.
Yeah.
Look at gorillas and like the 5 strongest land animals on the planet. We've got elephants, giraffes, hippos, rhinos, and gorillas. And what do they eat, friends? Yep, they eat plants.
So how do you navigate social situations when you're dining out as a vegan, but with non-vegans or at a general restaurant that serves animal products?
I have a lot of friends who all have different opinions on this, but me personally, I like to support restaurants that have vegan options. I am typically not in places where there's all kinds of vegan restaurants. When I do go somewhere where there's a ton, I'm excited and I like to try those. But in general, most of the time, I don't have those options to begin with. So if I'm going to eat out, what I do is I talk about my vegan lifestyle in a really positive way, and I'm really friendly to the servers. And I usually ask to speak to management to tell them how much I am thrilled that they have the options they do, how delicious everything was if that's the case, and how I'd love for them to add even more. I do, however, not dine with pre-vegans unless they're eating vegan food. I won't sit down at a table with people while they're eating anything that comes from animals. And some people think that's extreme, but for those people who think that, who are still eating animals, I'd like to encourage them to think about what they would do. Would they sit down with somebody eating cats and dogs? I doubt it. Not only do I love animals, every day of my life I fight for them. I think the average person wouldn't sit down at a table with someone eating cats and dogs, but then if you took someone in the rescue world who works at a shelter every day and puts everything they have into rescuing cats and dogs, I know they wouldn't. So I don't think it's that extreme, but I just won't put myself through that, and I won't normalize it to that extent. But I'm all about businesses seeing the ability to make money off of not hurting animals. So I think that when I go in there, it's really important to me that I talk to them about it and let them know that I'm only there because they have options. Because if you don't tell them, they're not going to know. It's like if you boycott a company because they test on animals, they don't know you're not buying their product for that reason. You have to email them or write them a letter or call them on the phone. Otherwise, they might just think you like somebody else's product better.
Right. So how do you feel about shared cooking surfaces? This is a whole big thing, right? And so this is a thing even between vegans. Like I know with the last question I asked you, you said, oh, my friends all have different opinions on this. mine too, you know, and I walk into these things all the time knowingly, but I do think it's something that we need to talk about because you actually changed my opinion on this.
Really?
Yeah. And I tell people this all the time. Actually, Eric has been repeating this recently. And he's been going, and when I told him that you changed my opinion on it, he's like, oh, now I'm going to start sharing it because I used to be the vegan who didn't eat anything from a shared cooking surface. I thought it was, I mean, I still don't like it. I mean, I'd rather have it not that way.
It's gross.
You know, it is gross. Like, I don't even like deep fried food. So let's get it, you know, so if it's fried, I don't even like it. But really, when you think about it, if you're going into any restaurant and ordering anything, they're probably sharing prep and cooking surfaces. They probably are, you know, unless it's a vegan restaurant.
Right.
So I remember being, you know, I was one of those people that was judgy about it. And you told me differently. And you changed my mind on that.
I would say I'm a shared fryer vegan. I don't overdo it on the fried foods, not nowadays at least. I'm better than I used to be, but I will definitely go to a small mom and pop Asian restaurant and I'm not going to complain that I'm going to get fried tofu in their one and only fryer. When it comes to cooking services, I don't usually ask anything about it. I want to make veganism as attainable as possible to people who aren't vegan yet. I don't want it to seem cumbersome. I will do my best not to think about it while I'm eating because it's gross, but I do keep in mind that temperatures are really high and things like that, so that kind of helps put me a little bit at ease. But I'm doing this for the animals. So if I'm not paying for animals to be killed or used or abused in any way, then I'm not gonna cause a problem over it. I just have to get past that gross factor, and that's really it for me.
This is a one that's a big controversy within vegans.
I've gotten attacked for this.
I don't know if you saw recently, I had something on my Facebook where I posted about something, and I can't remember the name of the restaurant. They have that orange chicken out right now.
Panda Express?
Panda Express. They have the orange vegan chicken out. And I never had it the last time it was out, never had it once. And I ordered it. And so I was telling people about it because I wanted people who are not vegan to eat it and for the vegans to know it's out right now and everything. And then I got told how I'm not a vegan because I'm eating that food that's cooked in a shared fire. And then I'm telling people about this. And I'm like, I'm definitely vegan, 100% vegan. Here's my thoughts on that. If you don't like shared fryers, don't do them. And I don't like them. So I want you to know, in my perfect world, I would not have a shared fryer. And I don't go out to eat that much. And I don't typically eat foods that would be cooked in a shared fryer. But when I go out to eat, if I want to go to a restaurant that is a non-vegan restaurant, anything you could get from there is a chance of it being shared. Whether it's a fryer or
the flat top
griddle, whatever, you know what I mean? They're not having separate things for everybody. So it is definitely one of those topics that's controversial. And my thing is like, I don't want to infight with people.
Right.
It's like, I think that doesn't help the cause. And another thing that you taught me, just, you know, I listen to every word you say. And that doesn't mean we always agree with everything, and that's okay. And we might not agree at one point and then like later on see it differently. And that's cool too, right? But another thing you said to me is always like, how does it affect the animals? How does it affect the animals? How does it affect the animals? And so I really always look at everything and I put those questions on it. And I say, okay, does this serve the animals? And Eric does too. So I'm telling you, I do, but so does he. And we talk about these kind of things often. You know, so when you're talking, people are listening, even if they don't always agree at that minute, or if they don't even seem like maybe they listen, later on they think about it, you know? The shared cooking surfaces was something we talked about years ago. I mean, it was a long, long time ago, but it's always stuck with me. And I couldn't believe I put this post up without even thinking about it. And then I was being attacked with the shared cooking surfaces. And then you're like ringing in my head. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, calm down. Like, let's all just be friends here. We are all for the animals, right? Let's not infight about these details. Let's all work for the animals. That's what how does this benefit the animals? If it does, awesome. And if it doesn't, let's not do it. Because other people are watching this, and we don't want vegans to look crazy.
Yep.
And vegans, they can't get along with each other, and they disagree about everything. It's okay to disagree. So don't go anywhere and get shared cooking surface food. You know what I mean? That's fine. That's everybody's choice Let's not argue about
And that's
it.
how one of my best friends is. She won't even eat at a restaurant unless they're 100% vegan, but she's not going to go online and post about it. She's not going to comment on anyone's post being mean or telling them they're not vegan, nor does she think someone's not vegan. It's just her personal preference. It grosses her out. She won't go.
And that's totally fine. Every one of us can have our own personal preferences and our own personal ways of doing things. But I think it's so important that we all are doing what's best for the animals. And whenever there's any kind of infighting, it doesn't help our cause, right? And our cause is to help people really see the big picture of what we're doing to our planet, to the animals, to our health, all of these things. And when we can stay like interconnected, then it's better.
Yep. We need to work together, and we don't have to love each other, but we should get along, or
Should never
especially
be mean to each
yeah.
other. There's no reason to be mean. Not everyone has to be best friends.
Right.
Not everybody has to hang out, right? But we shouldn't be mean. Everything, if we want to be sending a message of compassion and kindness to others, we have to show it to people too, right?
Right.
What do you say? I'm laughing because some of these questions, they make me laugh because you and I hear them all the time. To people who say that plants feel pain too.
Plants don't have a brain. They don't have a central nervous system. They don't have nerve pockets. They don't have nerve ganglia. So from what I've learned, it's not possible for them to feel pain. They react to stimuli, kind of like a doorbell when you press it. Just by some chance, they do feel pain. And somebody's worried about that. They're plants' right activists. They should go vegan because the least amount of plant casualties are going to happen on a plant-based diet. These animals eat massive, massive amounts of food that we could never eat ourselves. They drink massive amounts of water. They do everything in massive quantities. So the amount of crops in this
We're growing more crops for animals than we are for people,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Yes. So if somebody wants to lessen plant casualties, aside from getting rid of themselves, which I don't recommend, the best way to do it is to eat a plant-based diet, eat those plants directly. Don't eat a middleman that has to eat so many more plants to turn into this tiny little piece of animal flesh, and also suffered immensely and caused so much other damage to the planet in other ways and your own health. Plants don't feel pain, but if they do, go vegan. Or at least eat a plant-based diet.
Yeah. So you're an animal activist. Can you tell people exactly what that means?
Living a vegan lifestyle, eating a plant-based diet, it's more of an inaction. And so you're not participating in something. But being an activist, we are doing everything that we can to stand up for animals in the ways that we think will help people to understand what they're a part of and not want to be a part of it anymore. So we try to educate people, and hopefully they'll make better decisions that will in turn help animals, and hopefully even encourage them to become active as well and join us so that we can achieve animal liberation as quickly as possible.
What are the main goals of your activism?
I want people to stop hurting animals and to be a part of campaigns that maybe can encourage even people in other places all over the world to stop hurting them as well. Because sometimes the activism we do is long distance. Like you can do all different forms of activism no matter what your life is like. You can sign petitions that might have an effect on animals in another country, for example. The main goal is just to achieve animal liberation, or to stop our species from harming animals and using them and abusing them. And I got a saying from another activist a long time ago that I really like. All use is exploitation, all exploitation is a form of abuse, and all abuse is immoral. So, and another way I like to think of it, if you wouldn't want it done to you, then you shouldn't do it to someone else, and you should try to stop that from happening to them, even if you are not a part of it and never were.
So there's lots of different types of activism. So what types of activism are you generally involved in?
We like to do as many forms of nonviolent activism as we can, because we think that everybody's reached in different ways. And not only are people reached in different ways, but a particular person is reached in different ways depending on the day and what's going on in their life and what their current beliefs are. And just there's so many factors. So one day something might not work because of a mood somebody's in. And if it had happened to them on a different day, it could have been the one thing that made them go vegan. There's also theories that there's like a point system, and people need to have a certain amount of points per se, that they just need to find out a certain amount of things. But I think there's often just a trigger, and we don't know what that's going to be. So we're trying to do everything we can. Our number one thing is to try to educate people, but that takes so many different forms. And we love to do that by protesting, and some of the protests we really love are disruptions. But I also love to do cooking classes, and I like to teach people about the health aspects. But whatever I'm doing, even if it's more initially focused on maybe health or the environment, going to climate marches, whatever it is, I always make sure to get the message about animals in, so that it's not just a diet and it's something that'll hopefully stick and that people continue to research. I can't think of anything that's like that we don't like to do that's nonviolent. We're never gonna like hurt anyone or anything like that. But short of that, we like to say it nicely. We like to say it not so nicely.
Yeah, so I mean, different types of activism would include things like protests, demonstrations, you said disruptions, direct action, advocacy, awareness campaigns, education, legislative advocacy, vegan and plant-based advocacy, investigative work, rescue and rehab, establishing rescues and sanctuaries. I mean, there's so many. Years ago, we did a march together. I don't know if you remember.
Was it in Tampa?
No, it was somewhere. It was in Miami. So we did a march together, and it started off as a march, and it was great. I was very comfortable with that and happy. And then it became a disruption. It was people eating outdoors, and it was something I'm very not comfortable with. And so I was like, oh, because we all have our comfort zone, right? And so for me, a march is fine. Education, I'm all about education, right? But there's some things I'm not comfortable with. And I was like, crap, what did I get myself into here, right? So that's something that, for me, it's not my way, right? And I've never been like a fan of the disruptions or those kind of things. And I've always like spoke about that because I have a lot of people are uncomfortable with those things, right? And then you changed my mind on that too. Not that I'm going to do them. They're not for me to do. That's not me.
But you see that they can work.
But I see that they can work. And I'll tell you where you changed my mind on this, because I actually hated them. I did not feel like they were good at all. And so I'm hoping some viewers will hear this and understand too, because I did not feel like they're effective at all. I feel like when you're blowhorning at people that are eating food and this and that, I feel like all they're going to do is think vegans are crazy, they're going to hate you and blah, blah, blah. And I'm more of a peaceful, loving kind of person that just wants to love people into learning, right? And so, I've been open about that. Then I know you went into a couple restaurants that had foie gras on their menu, which is a very violent way of killing, is it geese?
Ducks and geese.
Ducks and geese, okay. And so you were doing protests there, and it was disrupting the restaurant business so bad that the restaurant owner or manager came out to you. You had a conversation with them, and you told them if they would take the foie gras off the menu, you would leave and never bother them again. And that was it. They have a whole menu of animal-based products, but you said take this one item off the menu, don't participate in this again, and we'll leave. And they agreed to do it. And when I heard that, I was like, that worked. That worked. And then I saw the power in a disruption or a protest. So then I was like, okay, let's change my mind on it. I still, as far as for the consumer sitting there and eating, I'm not sold that that's the best way to get through to them. I feel like they're going to hate vegans and hate activists and stuff like that. But I do think when it comes to the restaurant serving those things, I see it can be very effective because they're not going to want you there. So if you go in with a specific thing that you're trying to like overcome, I can see that being very effective. So it really changed my mind with that.
There's different tactics with the disruptions. Some are based on the company or the business, and others are more consumer based. I will say that I don't think they'll ever forget it. Yeah, Evan and I, the reason that we love them so much is because we've had so many positive outcomes from them. We've had people come outside and tell us that they were really affected. We've seen people crying in restaurants while we're in there. And restaurants and grocery stores are very different in themselves because you have one where people are just shopping and they might get annoyed, but they're not really going to be like that upset usually. But a restaurant, yeah, people are going and they're paying money for an experience, and sometimes it's a special occasion for them. But the fact is, it's violent. They are participating in violence in a place of violence. And so we have different ways that we approach when we go into a restaurant or a grocery store, and it's tailored for the consumer. I'm not part of a pressure campaign. I usually like to start by saying that we've come with a message of peace and compassion and nonviolence. I often don't use a siren for those types. Then when it's something that's part of a pressure campaign for either foie gras or stores selling fur, then we have different tactics that are more to encourage the business to just make us stop.
And what I think is good for viewers to hear is sometimes when you can see these things happening, it can look crazy and it can look out of control. But I want them to understand there's a bigger picture going on, you know? And I think that people can take it personal when it really has nothing to do with them, you know? And so I think it's important that people understand what activism is, because I mean, it sometimes is really shocking and upsetting, or whatever the emotion people feel is, right? And sometimes it's because it's not that you're even trying to make them feel it. It's that you're trying to make a corporation feel it or see it or something. Obviously you're trying to engage with someone and trying to cause a reaction somewhere, but you're not trying to hurt anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I always say to people about you, for instance, is you are one of the sweetest, nicest people that I know. I love you so much. And then people will be like, oh, she's so mean. And I'll be like, I don't know her to be mean. And then they'll like say something and I'll laugh and I'll be like, that's not even her. I mean, it's like, you're just such a sweet, kind person. So if anybody was to sit down and talk to you, they would see that and know that. But sometimes when you put that horn in your hand, you become this other person. Most of the time we're in my office talking and you're like shaking and nervous and stressed out and having anxiety and everything else, right? And then you go and you do these disruptions and you're like this little mega beast. And I'm like, who is this person? It's like there's two Shannons, you know, but it's like you are so passionate about saving these animals and about bringing the attention to the atrocities that they're facing, that you become this other person. You know what I mean?
I love these animals, and people don't have to love them. They just have to respect them. I've put myself through seeing a lot of horrible things because I think it's important to bear witness and see what they're going through so that we can show people what they're participating in. I think that people, if I wanted them to know something, it would be that, yeah, I'm not against them. I am really sad that we've all been born into this world of normalized violence. And I think that most people are really good at heart. I like to believe that. And I think that if most people could understand that we don't have to be a part of this, it's not normal, it's not natural, it's not necessary. In the words of Dr. Melanie Joy, it's none of those things. And I really am trying to help my fellow human beings to understand that we've all been lied to and it's not fair, and we have a right to the truth, and we should align our actions with the morals and values that we all have. I think they're hurting themselves, not as much as they're hurting the animals. The animals are having the worst imaginable things done to them, but every time they participate in that, they're hurting themselves, and I care about them too. I've made friends with truck drivers who drive animals to the slaughterhouses. I've made friends with people who work at slaughterhouses. I've made friends with people who own factory farms and own slaughterhouses that are responsible for killing anywhere from thousands of animals a day to over 12 million animals per week. One of the people that I've befriended, like, I don't hate anyone, even the people who are doing the worst imaginable things. I don't like how they make their money, but they're only in this because other people who are good people are supporting it, because they don't know they have a choice to do otherwise, because there's so much doubt, like you said earlier, and we've been taught so many things that aren't true.
So when you're on social media, for instance, and you're posting some of your very extreme things, which we talked about earlier, sometimes someone who maybe just started following you yesterday, they don't know you, right? They don't know you like I know you. and they see you post some of these very extreme sentences. Like, I don't even know if I want to use any other example, but they get upset. And so they'll either unfollow you or they'll voice it to people. What could you say to them?
Like I said, I think people are reached in different ways. Facebook in particular, the more words you write, the smaller the letters get, the font gets smaller and smaller. So I try to do some 1 or 2 liners where the font stays as big as possible that have an effect on people, but they're not going to affect everyone the same way. So it makes me sad if someone unfollows me, mostly because they won't see anything I post in the future. It's never out of hate. And if we're going to be completely honest, if someone is buying cow's breast milk, they are not intentionally, but they're paying for cows to be forcibly impregnated starting at the age of 1 year old. They're paying for them to have their precious babies ripped away from them the day that they're born. They're paying for this to happen to them over and over again until their bodies stop producing as much milk to make them profitable, or their bodies just give out and they die. Typically, they are sent to the slaughterhouse when they become useless, and 90% of the ground beef in this country comes from these spent dairy cows. So for every time someone buys ice cream or cheese or yogurt or milk that's not vegan, not plant-based, then that's what they're paying for.
You do realize, like, a lot of people, they don't even know that yet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, like, some people have no clue.
Right.
Right.
Everybody does know by the time they're like 4 or 5 when you are eating a dead animal, an animal had to die. But you're absolutely right. When it comes to eggs and dairy, people don't know. That's not something I want to be a part of. And I was vegetarian for the animals. I didn't want to hurt them. I just didn't know that not being vegan was still hurting them. So I think, like, sometimes when I try to think of statements that'll make people feel a certain way, but it's not going to make everybody feel the way that I want them to. So it makes me sad that, you know, I would make somebody, I do think it's a guilty conscience when someone is not vegan yet and they get upset enough about something I say to, you know, remove themselves from being able to see my future posts. But I want them to see them, and I want them to not feel that guilt, because that hurts them. Like, they obviously know they're doing something wrong. They just might not understand it all the way. I thought the same thing. I thought I was doing everything I could for animals until I learned more.
Right.
And that's what I want. I want people to keep educating themselves. I can only talk to so many people. A lot of people don't want to talk to me. That's why some of my hats that I wear have shocking statements on them, and shirts that I wear.
No, and you know, I've told this woman so many times, you can't wear that here. And wear it. That shirt, that hat, can't do it. Doing activism, you can. Here, you can't. So we are going to end this episode right here, but there is more coming, so please stay tuned and keep an eye out. The Plant the Change podcast explores how education drives societal transformation, nurturing compassionate and responsible citizens, and plants the seeds of change for a better tomorrow. At Solid Rock, Florida, we're a nonprofit committed to compassionate, humane education, an approach that blends academic excellence, ethical responsibility, and emotional growth. We're doing something unique, and we need your support to expand our impact and strengthen our efforts to create lasting change. Visit solidrockflorida.org and click the donate button at the top of the page to see our current initiatives. You choose where your contribution goes, and every tax-deductible donation, no matter the amount, is greatly appreciated. Show your support and stay updated on future episodes and initiatives by following Plant the Change on YouTube and Solid Rock on Facebook and Instagram, at Solid Rock Community School, and at Sanctuary at Solid Rock. Together, we can redefine the future of education and create a world that's guided by compassion and ethical responsibility. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep making a difference.